Welcome back, adventurers, to another episode of Cooking Through Exquisite Exandria. On today's journey, we are making both the Conciliatory Couscous and the Scaldseat Salmon, so let's dive right in and get started. In a bowl, add your couscous and your hot vegetable stock. Now we're going to take a third of a cup of sun-dried tomatoes and give these a rough chop. And then once these are cut, we're going to add them to the stock and couscous mixture. Give that a mix, and we're going to set this aside covered to hydrate for anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. While that hydrates, we are going to prep the rest of our ingredients for the couscous, starting with a preserved lemon that we're going to slice and dice with the rind. Now, I had never worked with preserved lemons before. I frankly didn't know they existed. I also kind of live in the middle of nowhere, so I had to drive about half an hour to go to a Cost Plus World Market so that I could get some of these preserved lemons. So if you're going to make this, it might be worth ordering ahead of time if things are not super accessible to you. Additionally, we are going to slice and then roughly chop a third of a cup of pitted green olives. Please don't have the pit in your olives. We also don't want to use stuffed olives for this, just regular pitted green olives. Now we are going to tear the leaves of 2 mint sprigs into a bowl. Now, a little bit of science for you. We don't want to bruise the mint leaves or really disrupt those cell membranes because we want the oils from the mint leaves to stay in the mint leaves. We don't want our couscous to taste minty overall. If you want to have something like a mint infused lemonade, then you're going to bruise or like muddle those mint leaves. So we're gonna not slice them, we're gonna tear them. Now, on the other hand, with the parsley, we do want that to be infused into the couscous. So we are going to chop the parsley. I did this in 2 batches because I found when I'm chopping parsley, it can kind of get all over the place. So we're going to chop the parsley and set that aside. Now we're going to brown a half cup of butter. Now, if you don't know how to brown butter, don't worry, I'm going to teach you. So over medium-low heat, we're going to slowly melt our butter. And what browning is essentially caramelizing the milk, fat, and butter solids, those proteins, in the butter. This is going to give it a nice toasty, nutty flavor. And it gives it its signature caramel, like dark color. Now this happens very quickly, so you don't want to step away from it, and you want to keep working it around because browned butter can burn. It's going to foam up quite a bit, so when that happens, I like to take the pan off the heat because the residual heat will cause the butter to continue to brown. So you're going to see it goes through a couple stages from like a nice light golden color to this like leathery, like a warm leather brown color. That's still not done enough. This is browned butter. Now you'll see there's a separation of the milk fat and the butter solids, and I'm going to show you those butter solids right there on my spatula. That is liquid gold. So we're going to set this aside to come to room temperature before we continue. Okay, so just to preface, I'm getting ready to assemble the couscous. I followed all of the instructions on how long to let it soak. I actually saw that there was still a little bit of liquid sitting in it, so I actually gave it additional time to absorb that liquid. That being said, I'll stop talking.
I mean, it's kind of absorbed all the liquid, but not really. I'm annoyed because it's damp. Why is it so damp? Texture of this couscous. It's not fluffy in the slightest. It's still hard. I'm just gonna strain this to give it a shot at life.
Let's move on with final assembly. So we're going to take our cinnamon and our green olive and our preserved lemon and our mint leaves and our parsley, and last but certainly not least, our browned butter, and stream that in, and then we're going to give this a nice mix until everything is evenly coated in that brown butter and everything is evenly distributed in the couscous. And then all you're going to do after this point is season it with salt and pepper to taste. I added a little less salt because I used salted butter, but I did add quite a bit of pepper. We're gonna give this a taste, and then we're gonna cover this and let it sit while we work on our fish. Let's work on the marinade for the fish. So for the marinade, we need half a lemon squeezed into a bowl. It doesn't have to be a large bowl. There's not a lot in the marinade. We don't need a ton of it, so we just need half a lemon squeezed. We're also going to take 2 cloves of garlic and mince those pretty fine. And you already know the hack. We're gonna take salt and use that to ensure that the garlic does not stick to the knife and that we can get as fine a mince as possible. So we're just gonna give these a really, really thin slice and mince those up and then add that to the lemon juice. And wow, look at that, so easy. So we're gonna add the garlic to the bowl, and then we are going to add in the remainder of our ingredients, which are Dijon mustard, honey, olive oil, salt, and fresh ground black pepper. And now we're going to whisk this together into an emulsion. An emulsion is just a mixture of like 2 or more liquids that don't mesh together. Classically, you could think about oil and vinegar. So you'll see it gets nice and cloudy and it looks a bit thicker, and that's how you know we're done, is it's nice and cloudy. So we're gonna set that aside, and then we're going to take 2 lemons and slice thin but even slices. These are gonna go on top of our fish. Now that the lemons are sliced, we are going to de-seed them. This took a little bit longer than I was expecting. I just used my fingers. A note though, that if your skin on your fingers is dry and brittle, or if you have any tiny cuts, maybe wear a pair of gloves while you do this. I did not think to do that and my hands stung. So yeah, once that's done, we're gonna toss those in a little bit of olive oil and set that aside. All right, let's prep our fish. Now, I am here to tell you that your store-bought fish is not ready for consumption. You always need to double check that the fillet is properly cleaned and removed of any pin bones. You can tell easily by running your finger against the grain of the salmon. So to remove those, you're gonna take some tweezers and gently pull. You might have to apply some pressure with your palm to kind of act as leverage, but you're gonna pull those out. You're also gonna wanna trim away any sections that have any discoloration at all. When selecting a fillet, make sure to double check both sides of the fish. You want it to be free of blemishes. I did not see this gash until I removed the packaging. So that's a mistake on my end. We're gonna put our marinade down on our salmon and work it in. Now, I'm using wild-caught salmon. There's a couple differences between wild-caught and farm-raised salmon. I'm using wild-caught Alaskan king salmon. This has it's leaner, there's less fat, but it's also a more vibrant color. Farm-raised salmon, fun fact, is actually gray. The pink that you get in there, that light kind of milky pink, is due to supplements in the fish feed. This rich color you see here on the wild-caught salmon is due to the foods that they eat out in the ocean. Once the marinade has been distributed, we are going to add our lemon slices that have been tossed in olive oil, and we're gonna cook this at 450 for anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes, and then we're gonna broil this for about 10 minutes until it's nice and golden around the edges. All right, time for final thoughts. We're going to start with the salmon since we're here. So the salmon I enjoyed. I'm not a super pungent fishy fish person. I prefer things like tuna, tilapia, cod, mahi-mahi. I do enjoy salmon. I think this take of salmon was good. I am not a fish skin person though, so I think instead what I would do next time is not bother putting any of the marinade on the fish skin. I don't eat fish skin anyway. It just felt like a waste to me. Also, because the skin was face down the entire time, it didn't crisp up, so it was just a wet fish skin that I found the texture was extremely unpleasant. I do think that the marinade could have used a little more of the Dijon mustard and the honey. It was very olive oil heavy, and when it heated up, it thinned out quite a bit, and so it pooled primarily at the sides. You'll see the color here is on the outsides of the salmon. There's not a lot of color in the middle, which is fine. It's just personal preference. I also would have added the dill directly to the marinade instead of on top of the fish after it had finished cooking as an afterthought. Overall, I will definitely make this again. I think I would serve it with like a seasoned rice and like a spinach salad though, rather than the couscous. That being said, let's move on to the couscous. Okay, let's chat couscous. First and foremost, I think there are several editing things from like the recipe formulation and the instructions that needed to be fixed. I think first and foremost, if you are specifying, the people who are buying this cookbook have likely never made couscous before. So if you have not made couscous before and you don't know what to look for, you need to specify what type of couscous you are wanting them to use, if that makes sense. If you are wanting things to turn out in a more Moroccan style way, which I think is where this was headed originally, like a Moroccan Mediterranean fusion situation, you are going to want to specify the type of couscous. I used an Israeli pearl style couscous that did not absorb the liquid as well as I think that a Moroccan style, more fine grain couscous would have. I think that served as like that was a detriment to the recipe, was the lack of clarity. I think also another instance of this was the parsley. I purchased parsley because I read through the ingredients list and I said, okay, we're gonna get parsley, that'll be fine. I get home, I look through the recipe book, and I'm getting ready to I'm getting my mise en place situated. I'm chopping these herbs. I'm chopping the parsley, getting ready to set it aside to add it to the recipe, and I look and it's flat leaf Italian parsley that is in the imagery. Now, that irritated me because had I known that it was Italian flat leaf parsley, I would have purchased the flat leaf parsley, but instead I purchased the regular parsley. So again, I think this is just the attention to detail for the editing for the recipe. That being said, I did enjoy the green olives. I did enjoy the preserved lemon. This was my first time using preserved lemon. I thought it was nice. I enjoyed the sun-dried tomato. I do think that they did not have... there wasn't a lot of seasoning in this. Literally the only seasonings used were cinnamon, salt, and pepper. You could technically say that the browned butter had some seasoning elements to it, like that nuttiness, but it's cinnamon, salt, and pepper. I think if you're going to borrow heavily from like a Moroccan Mediterranean cuisine, I think you need to incorporate more seasonings, if that makes sense. It fell flat for me. It almost tasted sweet with the cinnamon and the browned butter. It gave me like French toasty vibes, and while I'm eating this savory dish with bitter green olives, it did not mesh in my head. I think cumin would have done a lot for this, some paprika, it's like some smoked paprika, some ginger, some turmeric, something else to really kind of bring this together into one cohesive palette. Again, because when I ate this, I felt like I was tasting different things at once, and there was not like a clear, cohesive flavor profile for this. Now let's talk butter. So I enjoy brown butter. I think it has its place. I think it has its uses. I think it can really be used to elevate baked goods, and it can be used in savory dishes. I think there was too much of it in the in the couscous. I think I would have cut this down by half. I think I would have done a 1/4 cup. Also, the text in this, I was looking at this while I was putting my final thoughts together for when I was looking at the recipe. It references placating vegan relatives with this, and veganism requires like no animal byproducts, like dairy and meat. So there's a difference between vegan and vegetarian. I think, again, that might have just been an editing thing, but I think the brown butter was hit or miss in this. I still can't really decide on it. That being said, I mean, it was palatable. I think that's the thing, though, when you're putting together a cookbook like this, is you have to make sure it appeals to most taste buds. Personally, I did not enjoy this. I will not make this again. You do you. I thought the mint was refreshing and, you know, came through, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. But thank you so much, adventurers, for sticking around. I appreciate you watching this episode. I know the commentary for this last one was pretty long, but I do appreciate you listening. If you liked what you saw, give us a like. If you're not subscribed, we would love to have you. We do things all food and fantasy here at Underdark Cellars. So we've got some fun stuff coming down the line. So ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos go live. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. I'm happy to answer those to the best of my ability. I'd also just love to hear from you in general. If you like what you're seeing, if you don't, if you have any suggestions, please let me know. But that brings us to the end of the episode, adventurers. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.